chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good afternoon and happy Tuesday to everyone. It's good to be back with you. Yes, on this second Tuesday. Hold on here. Just getting my Facebook links up here. I want to share them with you. So yeah, we're getting ready here. I know we had a little glitch yesterday. So I want to make sure that I get you all up and running before I do all of the formalities. There we go. For all of you who are sitting and waiting for those links, I hope that you got them. We are now live and going. We shouldn't have a problem because we did yesterday. Well, yes, we all know it's 2026. Yes, the year of civic power. We are declaring it, civic power and building accountability together. So for all of you who thought really that was the episode title, that is the foundation. That's the bedrock of what we will be doing this year. But it is good to be back with you. And I would like to say good afternoon, Cayman Islands, and good morning to our global family, because we know you're all over tuning in. It's a new year. I hope you're not stuck with everything that's going on, but welcome to another Sabrina Speaks. Yes, like I said, we're declaring it. The year of civic power. Yes, and we are going to do it because we are voices of the islands, conversations for the world, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I'm your host, Sabrina. It's good to be back with you on this fabulous, cool Tuesday afternoon here in the Cayman Islands. It's really feeling like good old northwester, but not as strong as we used to having them. I'll give you the weather forecast in a few minutes. I know I overlooked that yesterday. There was just so much to tell you about yesterday. It was so exciting to be back, but we're going to get back into real moving and grooving of things here today, because the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and you or the participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of this discussion. And you know our discussions are fluid. You know our discussions are sound. It's relevant. It's topical. It's respectful. And all opinions matter. Yes, every one of you matter. So you may have seen the promotion for today. You know, I'm going to say it. When the lock on sovereignty breaks, the whole neighborhood feels it. I need you to let that sink in for a little bit. When the lock on sovereignty breaks, the whole neighborhood feels it. And today's episode title of the Sabrina Speaks is Your House, Your Rules, Sovereignty Explained. I'm going to do my best, pretty much using this analogy that is relevant with the flyer. What happens when the lock on your front door is broken and your neighbor walks right in? So in this episode of Sabrina Speaks, my aim is to really try and unpack the global shockwaves that we're seeing playing out literally by the second. And even though some may be celebrating, others are outraged. But the deeper question is really, is how sovereignty now is being tested and what that means for us, what that means for the world. We're hearing this word being used. We're hearing it more and more on various platforms, but do we really understand exactly what sovereignty is? And my aim again is to explore from this civic literacy level and why the lock on the door analogy matters for every nation. And then when you look at it from a global double standards context, while there was an emergency United Nations meeting that was ongoing yesterday, the UK even brought it up on the floor of their parliament that leads into the global double standards. And when you look at it, this is a talk worldwide right now and definitely much more regional. Why Venezuela was targeted and why other conflicts are treated differently is what it's appearing. That's how it's looking, right? And then we've noticed as well, at least I've noticed today in my research and preparing for today's episode, that there has been reports now from persons or businesses who sell travel insurance. And we've seen travel insurance spike now. So if you think it's not connected, it just shows how political instability, whether or not you want to see it as instability, but there is some form of instability, is even driving global travelers to protect themselves. And this isn't just about politics. I want to make it very clear. It's about us trying to ventilate here on this space and understand the rules of global neighborhood, what that really means, how pretty much they affect us even here, right here at home. And I'm inviting each and every one of you, as you always do. I want you to join in on the conversation, and I want you to challenge your perspectives. I want to do that and discover pretty much why civics literacy is the shield we all are sharing. This is no different. People like, what the heck? Why are we getting involved in this? Are they even a part of CARICOM? Is Venezuela even a part of CARICOM? Well, the answer is no, they're not. They're not even a partial member state. They're not a full member state. No, they're not. But because we're all interlinked some way, somehow, yes, we are interlinked. And so at the end of the day, I want to just go into that, but don't forget to follow me on Sabrina Turner, community activist on Facebook. There's also the Sabrina Speaks show on YouTube and all our CMR TV platform as well, so that you never, ever miss an episode. At 7:30, we will invite you to stay on the CMRTV.com page, because what will be coming up after Sabrina Speaks this evening is the AI wave that will be coming up next. So we got to get to it. We got to make sure we wrap up on time to make space for my other content creators here on this space. But before we get into the celebration, because we got a number of people that are celebrating birthdays today, and I love your feedback. I love your comments. I'll get to you because you are the bedrock of who we are right here. But I'm loving the temperatures. I'm loving the cool breezes out there. Couldn't get in the hammock today because I was just busy creating and getting ready for this show. But it's a cool 76 here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. And compliments of the Cayman Islands Weather Service. The synopsis calls for generally cloudy conditions with the chance of an isolated shower that will linger through Wednesday afternoon as a slow-moving surface trough lingers near the Cayman area. Now, decreasing winds and cloudiness will be expected thereafter as a ridge of high pressure rebuilds across the Northern Caribbean. And our satellite image shows some scattered, multi-layered clouds associated with this trough across the Northwest Caribbean. Now, the forecast for tonight and into tomorrow calls for tonight, cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s. Nice. Winds will be northerly at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Now, tomorrow calls for partly cloudy skies, becoming more fair later with a 20% chance of showers in the morning. Temperatures will rise to the mid-80s with a heat index of near 90 degrees. Winds will be east-northeast, 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. There will be a low tide at 6:33 this evening, and tomorrow a high tide at 12:20 a.m. and another low at 6:13. Sun will set this evening at 6:01. And sunrise tomorrow at 7:01. Yes, the outlook is for similar weather conditions through late Thursday, and thereafter an increase in winds and seas are once again expected as a secondary high pressure system builds over the Western Atlantic Ocean, therefore bringing moderate to rough seas early this weekend. A small craft advisory will likely be issued on Friday. So for all of you boaters and all of that that's happening out there, and you want to be a little proactive, which is always best when it's out on navigating the seas, especially this time of the year. There you have it. Looking forward to the weekend, and you can make your plans accordingly. We always encourage you to be safe. I know all of my guys out there who make their living from the sea, they fish, be it tours, charters, deep sea fishing. These weather updates are very important to you, and we appreciate your feedback. But it's that segment where, yes, we celebrate with those who are celebrating birth, life, and anniversaries today. But today, it's just birthdays. We are going to definitely big up my friend. Oh, yeah, Miss Melanie McField. Happy birthday, Mel. I'm wishing you a very, very happy birthday. Hope that you are definitely living it up to the fullest. And I'm wishing you many, many more birthdays. And from all of us here, we've seen all of the well wishes and birthday greetings going out to you all from the Sabrina Speaks family. Thank you all for sharing Melanie's birthday with and sending your love out to her. Well, girl, I wish you all the best. You're looking fabulous as usual. Keep it up, girl. And definitely, we don't just stick to Grand Cayman, you know. We include everybody. Doesn't matter. Once I know it, I'm definitely going to celebrate you. Guess what? We got Brackers. Kim and Brackers celebrating their birthday today. Trisha. Trisha Connolly is celebrating her birthday, old cuz. She is legitimately my cousin, and I want to celebrate her today. But what a mess. She and her son. Yes, Darren. Her son as well. Look at that. See them jeans, boy, pretty people. Yeah, spot they pretty people. We're celebrating mom and son today. Yes, that's Trisha and Darren Connolly. Trisha from Kim and Brack, Spot Bay. A mom and son duo are celebrating their birthday. Look at there. How sweet is that? So thank you so much for sharing the love with us and helping us celebrate these wonderful people on their birthday. We're wishing you many, many, many more birthdays to come, and definitely hoping to see you all soon. And you know how it is. It is what it is. But happy birthday. And I hope that you both, all three of you that I'm aware of, and anybody else for that matter, who is celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a very happy birthday and many more to come. Now let's see. Hey, Damien, you're first to comment this evening. It's so good to always have you here. Jimbo, the man's in the house. That's right. You clicking those glasses. Yes. How are you and how was your day? My day was fine so far. I've been busy all day. Look, my friend Shaq. Hey, how you doing, my friend? Happy New Year to you, my love. How are you? Hope the new year is kicked off quite well for you, and we're going to just smack it out of the ballpark this year, because it's all about civic empowerment, and we're going to do that together, right? Yes. Hey, Carmelita, how are you? Good evening to you, my friend. And as I guess you were going based on the opening that I was saying about the selling of narcotics. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit. But like I said at the intro, it's not about politics here. We're just looking at sovereignty, breaking it down, and how much of us really know the history behind the resources and the commodities of that country. And more we're hearing about this, is the more I'm getting interested in the jurisdiction. And that is why it is so interesting to see how it's unfolding. Yes. Hi, Iva. Happy New Year's to you too as well. Yeah. Not supplying China with oil is a rule. There we go. So I'm quite sure there's much more going to become. Yes. Carmelita, beautiful weather here. Yes, this is our Cayman version of winter. I tell you what, a couple of us, I saw plenty of people who says, oh, I would live in a cold climate right now. But the other day, oh boy, were they pulling out for their sweaters. They were too happy to pull out for those sweaters. I ain't lying, ain't no shame in my game. I was outside and I was wrapped in my neck. I love it too. Hi, Connie Bonnie. How are you, my love? Yes, it is a kinder, gentler, happy world Tuesday for everyone. Thank you so much for always being so positive. Good evening to you, Donnie. How are you, my love? So good to see you. Livana, I hope you're doing fine. I haven't seen you or heard from you yet for the new year. I know you lost a friend right there in the neighborhood. So yeah, our thoughts and prayers are for everyone who, again, is going through some form of mourning. But yeah, let's get into it. You know, yesterday, just before I think we ended, there was a press release that was given by Her Excellency, the Governor. And I don't know, I shared the link here with you because CMR, we posted it up on our Facebook channel. And, you know, Her Excellency, the Governor, Jean Owen, she released that statement yesterday that addressed the situation in Venezuela that is on the lips of every media house, every podcaster, pretty much everyone, what's going on. And, you know, in this situation in Venezuela, following what the military action and the capture of that president, Nicolas Maduro. And, you know, she pretty much in that statement said that Cayman, even though we're small, is watching closely. And what Her Excellency, the Governor, Ms. Jane Owen, said, she confirmed that the Cayman Islands are closely monitoring developments and that she has already discussed the matter with our Honorable Premier, Andre Ebanks, and that updated the cabinet as well. Now, in this press release, the governor also emphasized that the United Kingdom is in regular contact with the U.S. government, regional authorities, and international partners. And, you know, the British Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, spoke directly with the U.S. Secretary of State, that's Marco Rubio, stressing that the UK's commitment to international law and the importance of a peaceful, stable democracy in Venezuela. Now, what in this statement of reassurance, pretty much there was a part there where Her Excellency assured the public that the Cayman Islands will continue to track all of the developments and provide updates through official government channels, and that the message is clear with what she says. You know, transparency and preparedness are our top priorities. So when you pretty much look at it in all that, trying to unpack this, you know, she pretty much in layman's terms is saying that she met with the government, because that's what she is, she does, and discussing with our premier. And, you know, this underscores that at least the Cayman Islands government is being briefed, the elected arm of government, and is being prepared not to be caught off guard. Now, that is what that is. But the key takeaways for us here in Cayman is that, you know, there are a number of things. While we here in the Cayman Islands is not directly involved, instability in Venezuela can affect Caribbean travel. It can also affect trade and security. And where preparedness is concerned, the governor and premier are actively, as takeaways from what she's saying, they are coordinating and showing, Cayman is plugged into the UK's wider diplomatic response as well. And there is a rule of law when you look at that, is that the emphasis on international law, which is what brought me to the sovereignty topic today, and peaceful democracy really reflects Cayman's alignment, however much you think that this has anything to do with us or not. But it really reflects Cayman's alignment with the global norms. And the mere fact that, with the public assurance, she promised that Caymanians will be kept informed through the local channels and in reducing the risk of misinformation. We understand how quickly news travels. There's so much websites, there's so much news channels now that are on podcast things. You can get them in snippets, you can get them in reels, and they're even just snipping instead of sitting down and just listening to large or long press briefings. Even the news, big media houses now are just biting it off in small chunks of what they want to share, and it's easier to digest. So what does that mean for us here in the Cayman Islands? Because it is something that's being taught. It really shows that our government is plugged in, as I said, and that Cayman stands for stability and the rule of law and resilience. So at the end of the day, we just have to be aware, be prepared, and, just like we said, keep it locked to our local channels for all of the latest details. Now, I just wanted to share this with you for a public awareness statement segment. We want to get some more information. It is to be confirmed, and we're waiting for, if it is actually, we have from reliable sources that reported that there are sightings of Mark Golding, a member of the Jamaican opposition here in the Cayman Islands, and that he was spotted. Now, while the purpose of the visit is not yet disclosed, with everything, his presence draws public interest, even given regional significance here with Jamaica and Cayman ties, So, but again, this is to be confirmed. There's just sightings of him. And we don't know. So I'm quite sure at this time, no official details have been released and to be confirmed. So keep it locked. And if we get more information on it, we'll definitely share it with you. But there has been from reliable sources that have reported seeing Mr. Mark Golding here in our beautiful Cayman Islands. Mm-hmm. Hey, Marshall, how you doing? Good evening to you, my dear. And Jackie Bennett, it's good to have you join us as well. Hope it is great for you over there, Marshall. I know it's cooler here, and we're loving the weather. I cannot even want to get what your temperatures are. I want to share with you and a Have You Heard segment, which I've gotten some feedback from you guys, and thank you for sharing that with me, that you really like the Have You Heard statements. It's almost like a little bit of sus. But we're going to keep it real here with you. And as the information comes in, I had to reboot this morning. So there we go. As the information come in, we will definitely be sharing it with you. But yes, you heard at the intro that I said there has been a sharp raise. People who sell travel insurance right now there's a growing demand following the U.S. raid on Venezuela. And we saw what is happening with even cruise and air travel. And it is really a wake-up call for travelers in Cayman and beyond. Even though with the press release, we're not immediately impacted. We're not immediately impacted. We are still realize that travel can be hampered as people try to get back home. Now, in the wake of this, we have seen where there have been some delays, even cruise persons trying to get off of cruise and those who are trying to get onto cruise, that they have been hampered because of what is happening. And we are seeing where that now the demand for travel insurance is definitely, there's a growing demand for it, even though it's an additional fee. And for travelers, what they're saying in the feedback, this isn't, again, about politics. It's just about the risk, safety, and the financial protection for those persons. We know in this region of the world, we get a number of people coming to the Caribbean region for holidays to beat the cold, to just get out of the cool temperatures from their countries. And for that, they're now seeing an increased demand in persons asking for it. And what didn't help as well, and why I think people are going more for these travel insurance, is that from the time the US State Department issued the highest travel advisory for Venezuela as a do not travel there within the region for connection and flights and all that sort of stuff, there was concern. So travelers are now asking, oh my gosh, it's one thing you're going on holiday, you're excited to leave the cold, you're coming into the beautiful Caribbean, no matter where it is. What if this happens to another country while they're visiting, or that they're even visiting? Because we're hearing what is being pushed out from the United States president right now of other countries, and it's not necessarily limited now to the Caribbean region. But you know, the question is real. What if it happens to another country that they're actually planning to be visiting or are visiting at the time? And what we're seeing is, again, insurance companies are definitely seeing an increase and an interest in this insurance that would actually cover, let's say, trip cancellations, God forbid, because we know the travel insurance companies, they have insurance that can also do emergency evacuations and for political unrest coverage. But there's a kicker to that. Not all of these policies, unless you actually read the fine print, will actually cover for political unrest. So there are some tips that you need to really, when you're going to go to buy this additional coverage now, which is another cost, you really need to ask the question, what does it cover? But for here in the Cayman Islands, it's, we are the hub for regional travel. Yes, we do a lot to Jamaica, Panama, and all that sort of stuff. It's proximity that matters. Venezuela is right there. And even though many Caymanians travel for business, family reasons, or even medical reasons, but a few stop to ask, what if the political climate really shifts like that? Okay, what if it happens overnight? This isn't a war zone. It's about sudden border closures, flights cancellation, and, just standard traveling could just be impaired. So my advice to anyone who's traveling right now, to be honest with you, is to make sure that you can ask for it. It's probably the best thing for you to do. And it's just personal responsibility. And we are seeing more and more where global politics affects our daily lives just like this, even on vacations, even on honeymoons, even on destination weddings. We're seeing that. And we must look at travel insurance now, to be honest, not only as a financial tool, but it really is that shield of some sort of support where sovereignty and stability can shift overnight. That's some form of protection for you. So I was doing some digging myself, because what we're seeing here in the Cayman Islands, the number of us really just book our own stuff online. And some of us really still go to travel insurance, travel agents to book our travel. Some of the questions that you need to ask is whether or not they can bundle. But in the event you're one of those persons who just help yourselves, I've seen this is unsolicited and a shameless plug. I saw where CG Brit K offers single trip and even annual travel insurance plans. And some of these plans I've seen on their website starts from $2 a day. Now, again, when you're purchasing these plans, which a lot of them can be purchased online with instant confirmation, right? And you just upload your electronic documents. But I saw one for CG Brit K, and there was another one as Arias Insurance. They kept coming up. So at the end of the day, the key is shop around. If you have a local travel agent, many a times they can do packages as well that could possibly include the packages from CG. But shameless plug to them. They were the one that came up, so their algorithms are really high. Good for them. But we're now seeing an increase in that. So even though it may cost you a little bit more, the peace of mind is just amazing. But the key is make sure, because of political instability, you got to make sure that whatever coverage you are actually purchasing, that the reason for delay or cancellation of your flight, cruise, whatever, if it's leading because of political reasons, that is one of the reasons why that they will cover. Otherwise, you could be disappointed. But bottom line is, there is a certain spike, there is an increase, and I can see more of that happening. Yes, it is definitely happening. Real Michelle, political insurance fraud. There's a new one. Oh my God, you're something else. How are you today, my love? Cayman is the hub for financial fraud. Look at your bankers. They have butterfingers. Darling, good evening. How are you, darling? Good to see you here with us this evening. Now, I took it upon myself to really just look at the history of this oil. I took it upon myself, and it will all tie into play with the analogy of sovereignty. Okay, it's all going to make sense. Trust me. 345-936-8255 is the number to call, right? I wondered, to be honest with you, and this has been talks on with a number of persons as well, in regards to who does this oil really belong to? Because you're hearing so much platforms, you're hearing so much. Who owns the oil in Venezuela? Right? I'm quite sure all of you are on various news media platforms and you're hearing who owns the oil, who doesn't own the oil, yada, yada, yada. Well, I did some digging. And pretty much what I found is that the oil legally belongs to Venezuela. Yeah, and not the United States. And in that research, I found that, and I'm going to be reading because I want to make sure I'm giving you the facts and what's available out there. The history of the United States and Venezuela, where the oil relations is long. And number of sites have said it's even complicated. And what we're seeing now, contentious, okay? And the US was once, key here, Venezuela's biggest oil consumer. But nationalism, and as we can see now, political tensions and even sanctions, which we have seen, have reshaped that relationship. And here it's repeating itself again. Okay. Now, looking into the whole, I had to make it make sense, to be honest with you, because they're conspiracy. And then you just look at the facts, you look at the commodities, you look at the resources of a country. And then again, with everything that's happening, is there something bigger afoot? Well, it took me back as far as 1920. Yes, I'm a child of 1974. And I just not going to run with what I'm hearing now. There's always undercurrents. There's always a root cause, which is why I felt to bring it all around, it makes sense for me to look deeper into it. And it was between 1920 and 1970 that the jurisdiction of Venezuela became one of the world's largest. And for record, the research proves that right now to date, it's the world's largest oil producing jurisdiction, right? But between that time, it became one of the world's largest oil exporters, with the United States companies like Standard Oil and Exxon. They became heavily involved in the removing and refining of this oil, right? And then in 1976, you got to make it make sense. You got to connect the dots, okay? Instead of pointing fingers, I don't like this one, I like this one. No, let's look at it full circle, right? Nationalism happened in 1976 when its oil industry, that's Venezuela's oil industry, created their own company, right? And they are asserting that this oil resources belongs to the people of Venezuela through the state. And that was Petróleos de Venezuela S.A., right? So they put their feet down from 1976 and say, look, these resources belongs to Venezuela, Venezuelan people through the state. And then for decades, Venezuela was the top supplier of crude oil to the US, and especially during the 20th century, right? Now, when you look at the two relationships, oil then was central to the US foreign policy in Latin America, because when you look at Venezuela, it's not considered Caribbean, it's a Latin American jurisdiction, but technically a part of them is in the Caribbean, right? And Venezuela's resources made them a critical partner, but also a source of leverage. So their resources, all that they have, they got spices. It's just not oil that they have. It's refining it, getting the actual hand on the product. They have this natural resource in their country. And when we looked, then it goes back in history to Hugo Chavez era, which was between 1999 and 2013. Hugo Chavez, in this research, redirected the oil reserves towards social programs and distance in the research Venezuela from the US influence. You hear what I said? Between 1999 and 2013, under Chavez, they decided to assert themselves. They put themselves down. They saw where they could capitalize on it and redirect the monies and put those into social programs within their country. And then they began to distance themselves from US influence. Now, under Chavez's era, he pretty much then accused Washington of exploiting Venezuelan oil and sought then alliances with other jurisdictions such as China, Russia, and Iran. Now, this was true Chavez era, and that's 1999. Go look it up for yourself. Between 1999 and 2013, they said, look, we're not going to be controlled by the United States. I'm going to find a testicular fortitude and I'm going to benefit the people of my country. And this is what we're going to do. We will no longer, as he called it, be exploited by the United States. And we're going to redirect those monies now and build up our country and do more social programs to the benefit and betterment of our people. Guess what happened then in 2014, a year after? Between 2014 and 2020, because they decided to stand on their own 2 feet and then use their own natural resources, obviously creating alliances with other places. The United States, because they decided to pull away, put sanctions against the government. And that in itself restricted Venezuelan oil exports. So pretty much what they did, they strangled them, okay? And because of that, imports to the United States dropped dramatically. It didn't say that they ran out of oil. It didn't say that their oil was of a lesser value. They just decided to say, look, we're not going to be exploited anymore. Maybe give us fair value so that we can build our people, build our country, be stronger. But when obviously that didn't happen, then they were sanctioned. They were pretty much suffocated. And we saw recent conflicts going back from the 2020s that the big topic now is oil remains the center of the dispute. Every other word come out of the US mouth right now is oil. And it has continued to be the center of disputes. And what we're seeing now because of this, because for me, it has to make sense, okay? What we're seeing now is the US administration having alternative, these sanctions that they're putting on and negotiating and attempts to influence what we're seeing now, Venezuelan leadership. And that's often trying to, when you put oil, politics, and just wanting to assert oneself, that is what we're seeing, okay? So the question was, because I kept hearing the oil belongs to the United States. There is nothing that can prove at this time that that is the case. There is nothing to prove that Venezuela, a portion belong to the United States. So legal ownership of Venezuelan oil reserves are sovereign. Yes, Venezuela's oil reserves are sovereign. And that means that it is controlled by the state. It is national property. Okay? And even though the US and other foreign firms have historically invested in the extraction and even assisting in refining, they do not own the reserves themselves. They operate under contracts, under agreement, under joint ventures. And what my research also found was that Venezuela holds 17% of the world's proven oil reserves. The largest in the world globally. And because of that, it makes sovereignty over oil a constant geopolitical flashpoint. Now, some even in the research is saying when you're looking for crude, despite there being how much billion or 1,000 million barrels of this crude oil that they're estimating out there in Venezuela, it's hard to actually refine. It's actually hard to extrapolate, right? But there are risks and there are some realities of being such a rich nation, because literally it is rich with crude, but you got to get it, okay? And Venezuela's reliance on oil reserves makes it very vulnerable to sanctions and market shifts. And I guess standing up to protect what is your national resources has become one of their biggest threats. And when you look then at the word geopolitical and the leveraging and what we're seeing, the United States has historically used oil as a bargaining chip in diplomacy and actually in intervention. So when you look at sovereignty versus access. Yeah. What we're seeing right now is the central conflict is whether Venezuela can freely use its very own oil and their oil wealth for their own country in order to develop, or whether external powers will continue to exert influence. Now, to be honest with you, yesterday was significant because we realize who it's belonged to. But even with all of the complexities and all of that, this whole creation and what they have is really questioning, putting questions on world leaders. We saw where I'm going to try and pull it up here, where at the end of the day, we had even the UK, questioning why and how it was done and who's next. Because at the long part of it, what they're saying in layman's terms, there's something fundamentally wrong with how it was done. Yeah. So really and truly, the question is, if Venezuela is resource rich because of it having the world's largest proven crude oil reserves, and you know how much that is? When I went to look, it's over 300 billion barrels is what they estimate that is actually there. But in this unfortunate case, being oil rich doesn't automatically make that jurisdiction wealthy because of, again, what am I going here? Yeah. Mismanagement and the difficulty of extracting this heavy crude oil has also had its form of challenges. So I have shared with you the best of my ability with what research I did and what I find. You can challenge me, but I beg everyone to just go and just look at it themselves. You can find information that's easily accessible that date back to the 1920s and bring you straight up to the 3rd of January, when the US military intervened and removes this president. And then Washington signaling plans for the US oil companies to rebuild Venezuela's oil infrastructure. But at the end of the day, the questions are still asking, is that maybe a bullish approach with their attack and how it was done? We heard civilians died. We've heard a number of in this removal. And what we're seeing now is outright national backlash. We're seeing it from both sides. We're seeing where Venezuelans now may resist even foreign control of their oil. And we're seeing that they have been fighting this based on the information that is already out there and seeing it as a loss of their sovereignty, okay? We're seeing even global tensions. Greenland is now being called up. Yeah, we're even seeing some states in jurisdictions in Africa now that are being called out. What you need to look at is their commodities. What resources do these jurisdictions hold that would make them so attractive to one particular jurisdiction? And because of that, we're seeing global tensions. And intervention raises alarms in the entire Latin America. Yes. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is, yes, Venezuela is rich in oil, but poor, very poor in cash. And the reason for that, which can actually steer exactly the value of its money. Yes, that all has to do with its currencies. It all ties into play. Sanctions are the chokehold that keeps Venezuelans' wealth locked away because it is barring them from transacting business. Yeah. And when you look at it, they're being barred, or have been, this has been an ongoing fight for their natural resources. And this is just putting it into a geopolitical battleground is exactly what is happening, rather than a source of prosperity for Venezuelans themselves. They can't even help their own people with their own natural resources. Yeah. While we were live, or there was a point in time yesterday when we were live that the United Nations Security Council met for an emergency meeting because of exactly how everything went down. Now, at the end of the day, what we saw is the purpose of that emergency meeting was to discuss, from what my research unfolded, was why it happened in the first place. And they're saying, and this is the meeting, and it was because of exactly how the US military went in and over the weekend, right? And some may say, well, what role does the United Nations have to play? Well, guess what? Their Security Council exists for the very same reason, to maintain peace and security globally, United Nations. And when one country removes another's leader by force, it raises questions of legality. And here we come again, the word sovereignty. So imagine, in layman's terms, imagine a neighbor barging into your house and taking the head of the household without permission. Well, the United Nations meeting was basically the world's town hall meeting yesterday to decide if that's acceptable behavior. And pretty much what the outcome of that meeting is that both the US allies and advisors, this is what my research came up, criticized the operation. And France's envoy said, it chips away at the very foundation of international order. Okay? Yeah. And what we're seeing as well, the outcome of this meeting, is that the United Nations Secretary General sent out a warning that Antonio Gutierrez said that the US is setting a dangerous precedent by violating sovereignty. Okay? And from the Venezuelan stance, its ambassador called it the act of colonial war. Colonial war, and demanded the release of their president. Now, what we're also seeing now globally, from the global context, because we got to keep it real here, is that Russia and China also is strongly opposing the US's action, while some Western nations express concern, but stop short of demanding immediate reversal. So at the end of the day, what is next? Because this is real, it has happened. It is in hindsight now, because the execution of the extrapolation thereof has already happened. And even though they're in meetings and all this sort of stuff, what does that do one continuously say, we're going here or we're going there. I hear Cuba being called. I hear Greenland's being called. I hear Colombia is now being called. You're hearing all of these other jurisdictions, and people are like, yeah, we wanted this to happen. So what? They're not saying, that if narco-terrorists is happening, whatever, but it's the way in which it was done. And this is why I said at the beginning, we're separating politics from protecting sovereignty. Hence me using the analogy of the door being broken and someone coming into your house and removing the head of the household, just bang. That is why I used that analogy. So from the outcome of that meeting, of the United Nations Emergency National Security meeting, the next steps, what is actually, what's the difference between Noriega and Maduro are coming? The diplomatic pressure then is that the United Nations may push for investigations into the legality of those operations. And the resolution of that meeting is that the Secretary Council could draft a resolution condemning the act through the US so it can be veto it, it can be vetoed. But then as we look then at the aim, then the outcome of this meeting was then that there would be a continuous monitoring of Venezuela. And with Maduro being gone and the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, sworn in as the interim leader, then the United Nations will likely monitor Venezuela's tension closely to see how this unfolds. But long term from this meeting is that what we're seeing is that they expect debates over whether international law needs stronger protections against unilateral interventions. So at the end of the day, what we're seeing is that, you could do a mock exercise or you could have tabletop exercises where what if scenarios come up. But guess what? This was not a tabletop exercise. It was said a long time ago and it happened. It was executed and now it's happening. And it's almost like the United Nations now are coming in on a back foot, now trying to clean up, trying to look at different legislation because they're like, holy crap, it really happened. What laws, what international laws can we actually tighten that this won't be a repeat again because it has happened and who's next? So bottom line from all of what is happening is that the United Nations meeting was really about whether one powerful country, as we've seen, can forcibly remove another's leader. And most nations at that meeting said no. And they were all in unison pretty much warning that it breaks the rules of sovereignty. And because of that, the next step is diplomatic, what you would call wrangling or resolutions, even monitoring and pressure. But then the United States veto power means the outcome will hinge on global consensus rather than the enforcement. So it all depends. And what we're seeing because of this, we're having households, we're having the world is somewhat divided, even if you may say, what the heck is Sabrina talking about this when it has nothing to do with the Cayman Islands? Oh, yeah? Think again. The world right now is divided. We have heard at the end of the day how even simple travel has been affected. What if our shipping lines that delivers our food is impacted? Because of where we're located. Yeah, the world is right now divided. And I had to bring it into context, even though going back to 1920 was far-fetched. It makes sense now that we're in 2026 and we're seeing it all unfold. Okay? And the entire principle of sovereignty, because we're hearing this word over and over again, the principle of sovereignty says International laws says each nation, each country has the right to govern itself without outside interference. International laws says each nation has the right to govern itself without outside interference. And removing, as we've seen unfolded, a president by force is seen as a direct breach of that very said principle. Yes. Now, some countries argue that it's about time, that it was necessary for his removal to restore democracy or human rights in that country. It's being framed as humanitarian or stabilization. Okay? And then others warn that if powerful nations, this is the takeaway, can topple leaders at will, no country's sovereignty is then safe. That is what you're looking at, you know. Others warn that if powerful nations can just step in and scoop up and topple leaders at will, is any country safe? That is taking on the characteristic that no sovereignty is safe. Hence, they're saying it's setting a dangerous precedent. So, again, my graphics for today's show says it all. Think of it like this. Sovereignty is actually your house, your business. In context, the word sovereignty is your house. And you decide who comes in, who leaves, and how things are operated in your house. Intervention, in this case, is a neighbor breaking in and taking the head of the household. Even if they claim it's for your own good, the act in itself breaks the rules everyone agreed to. And in this case, the United Nations emergency meeting yesterday is like the HOA. Yes? It's like the neighborhood council, the homeowners association. And what they did, they gathered to argue whether this was justified or a dangerous precedent. Okay? I'm trying to be as layman as I can, as nonpartisan as I can, because I had to look at it from a different lens. I had to see why there? Because we are seeing where similar tensions with even Israel and Netanyahu, but yet they went after Venezuela. Bottom line is, and the key takeaway is, the emergency meeting wasn't just about Venezuela. So I don't want you to get lost in the details or what I've said. It was about the rules of the global game. Because if sovereignty can be overridden, the balance of international order itself is at serious risk. Yes. remove politics. It's the very act and how it was executed. You hear the words of democracy. We're hearing the words of sovereignty. I've given you historical context, and you have seen it being played out on a world stage. At the end of the day, it's for you to make your decision. Yeah. So the bigger picture is that council that we met. What is going to be the outcome of that? So I said we're going to use civic literacy as our foundation and our bedrock here, right? And what we're doing is that, in plain terms, for the sake of those who may not really understand, it's like that lock on your front door. And if one person can break into it and change your household, whether or not a neighbor gets left alone, despite disputes, people can start asking, are the locks real or just a symbol? Is it just symbolic? And that's what, even with the question in the United Kingdom Parliament yesterday, was asked. Yeah, in the middle of that meeting, the UK question wasn't just about Israel, right? They were asking, and I found where the question was asked, whether or not it couldn't be done to another jurisdiction on the floor of Parliament. And that, it was this Cold War and double standards, I think, is what the term was being used. So Latin America versus Eastern Europe at the end of the day. And we saw what was happening. But even in a case where how one was extrapolated based on the allegations levied against the Venezuelan president, what they looked at as to whether or not that could change the trajectory of the case. At the end of the day, no, it has no bearing. It has no bearing as to whether or not it will change the case. Once the courts in the United States finds him, he has to go through the court system. How he actually gained entrance or how they extrapolated him and brought him on U.S. soil will have no bearing on the actual case, is another finding that I found in it. So at the end of the day, we went from who does the oil belong to, the allegations against, and I don't want anyone getting this whole conversation mixed up as to whether or not I'm pro this leader, pro that leader. No, I am just here, just educating. You're entitled to your opinions and we welcome them. And at the end of the day, you can believe what you want. But I did the research from a neutral, nonpartisan standpoint. And at the end of the day, I'm just delivering my findings to you because I'm hearing there's so much discussions about it, of everything, how it was executed. I had to find out why. We're hearing too that our neighboring country, Jamaica, may have precious metals, gold, and different stuff there. And we're seeing all of the talks even coming out of our neighboring country, Jamaica. And some alliances there of what is being alleged over there with the discussions and the talks. I'm not interfering with any other jurisdiction politics, but if there's a pattern, then maybe there may be some truth to what's happening. Is it really about narco-terrorism, or is it about the country's commodities? That's the big question. I want to try to keep up with some of your questions and comments here, because I just wanted to get it out across. The real Michelle says, the Bilberger group connected. Keep looking. It's connected. Okay. I believe the oil fields in America belong to Britain. Okay, that was another comment. No, she's waffling, talking absolute rubbish. Oh, you're entitled to your opinion. If you don't like what I'm saying over here, please just drop off. We welcome you to drop off. Yeah. Thank you. Ray says Pirates of the Caribbean. The real Michelle says, look here, oil, where is the gold? Gold is the benchmark value of the US dollar. Tartarian says, we should treat travel these days like hurricane season. Do not travel unless it's essential reasons. Why are people so determined to travel? I have not been on a plane in 15 years and I am fine. Oh, really, Tartarian? Oh, wow. Okay. People, didn't you say like, rock fever? People travel for a number of reasons, medical reasons, for business, for family vacations, for just general shopping. Now with the ease of even Amazon and shopping and getting stuff delivered here, at the end of the day, you don't have to necessarily travel unless you want to sightsee. And I think everyone, especially from us being in small island development states, we should actually travel to get to see different cultures, to understand and see different way of life. I think it opens our perspective. That's would be my reason for traveling. Get to know other people's cultures. You may say, well, oh gosh, you can research that. It's a total different when you actually go to a different jurisdiction and feel and see their culture, get to know and, actually put your foot on the ground. I think it's a big difference than just researching it. You put it into perspective, bigger. The raids continue to repeat themselves due to the greed of the Western imperialism. Patrick Brake, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. You think it's oil? Think again. Okay. Hi, Jacqueline. Good to see you. Real Michelle says, sounds like 2 million ounces of gold. Same old song. Tartarian says, they have to sacrifice a little bit of oil for freedom. I don't see much of an issue. It's a trade price for freedom. That's what Tartarian's comment is. Billy says, who is next is the right question. U.S. policymaker Stephen Miller just said it in the real world, whoever has might is right. Global bullying is now the accepted method. Well, you're seeing those lines are being used on other platforms and even come out of other media houses, to be honest. So at the end of the day, let's see. No, Martinez. It's not about the oil. It's about who controls the oil. Oh, gold, dollar. Are you so close? Waking up a bit. Okay, I can see that Michelle saying something else. Yeah, so I'm really trying my best here to keep up. Damian Henry. Global tensions are on the rise and escalating across regions. Albert Einstein once said that while humans invented the atomic bomb, no mouse in the world could ever build a mousetrap. Let that sink in. Very interesting. Yes. Wow. Another share here from another commenter. 55 countries don't recognize Maduro as legitimate president of Venezuela. Of course, I've seen that as well, that others. And Real Michelle is saying it's also a spiritual war. And Denver, it would be good to hear what is the difference, to be honest, Denver. The raids continue to repeat themselves due to the greed of Western imperialism. I think I read that already. Safety and abundance will be found in your connection with God. This is it, people. What was hidden in the darkness shall be the light. Keith Orr, the International Crime Court has an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu for war crimes. Yep. So let's see. We don't know. Hey, Miss Lucille over there in the UK. Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm listening and using my eyes. My lips are sealed. Okay, there we go. The devil divides to create chaos and confusion. Michelle is saying, kaboom, you're pure gold, a real earth angel. Oh, thank you for that. Hey, Shelly, how you doing? With all due respect, this was a legal arrest of Maduro. It was not an act of war. Maduro was indicted in 2020. Why would you condemn this legal action and pain and suffering he imposed on the people of Venezuela? The Venezuelans around the world are celebrating, and you are condemning the legal actions of USA FBI, not the government. You don't have your facts straight. Thank you for your opinion, Shelley. Much, much appreciated. And Maduro charges, yes, a leader, my type of woman, keep shining. There we go. In your analogy, the neighborhood is also intending to empty the fridge and jewelry box and steal the car. Yes, it was just the analogy being used. Raymond Scott is just hearing blah, blah, blah. Check your mic, check your speaker, Raymond. If that's all you're hearing, it's a good thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm doing my best here. And Keith Art says what he's saying here is Maduro is a criminal. Jim Norris. And let me go here. And to the other side, all may be the center of dispute. However, Chavez is not for his people, and neither is Maduro. They took one of the wealthiest countries and brought it to their knees. We also need to look at who these guys held hands with: China, Iran, Russia, and even Cuba, who have had leaders who want to see the U.S. brought down. 3 of these 4 countries' leaders needs to be kept at bay. And in around the Western Hemisphere, yes, sadly, civilians died. But how many? Okay, I don't see anymore. I can't see anymore. The fields, Jimbo got cut off. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fair to fine.
Fair to fine.
Mm-hmm.
I guess now is as good as time as any other for me to get in
Oh, yes, you get right in trouble. Join the bunch. At least we got the label.
What we see happening in Venezuela is a number of items. One is they were experimenting with socialism. And the problem with socialism is that it promises you the world, but it doesn't really deliver. What it actually does is destroy your country. Just look at what happened in Argentina. And they've been under socialism for about 80 years, and it ripped that country apart. But it causes the country to engage in activity that, well, gets the country in trouble with non-socialist countries. And I mean, who could argue? I'm not saying that this is the entire reason why the U.S. went in and arrested the president. But who in their right mind would just sit there as the country is exporting drugs to your country and killing your people? Who would just sit there?
Correct.
Just on that one item alone, you're in a lot of problems. And yes, you can argue about how they did it. And if I would touch on that point for a little bit, what I would say to myself as I think about the criticisms of the number of people who died in Venezuela during the campaign that arrested the president. I think the last number I heard, I think it had reached like 80. I'm not sure what it's at now.
Yes, it was 80 something that I heard earlier on today.
It was dead. Okay. And you might ask yourself, well, was that really necessary? Was it worth it? So you have to look at the other side of the coin, which is, well, how many lives are destroyed by drugs in America by people who just sit there and do nothing and allow it to happen. The people I hear criticizing the deaths, they're okay with millions of babies being senselessly aborted in America on a daily basis. So it can't be that it's over the loss of human life that they're really concerned.
Mm-hmm.
That seems irrational to me for them to be taking that position. So it has to be some other reason why they are upset.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me back to this idea of socialism. New York just voted in a socialist for mayor. Now, he promised that he would make transportation in the form of public transportation free. But what actually happened was that the price of taking the subway went up.
Mm-hmm.
And he has only gotten started. I guess he couldn't fulfill the promise.
Right. I guess it is like when you actually on a campaign trail say, this is what I'm going to do, elect me, I'm going to do this. And when you get in, you're sworn in, and then the books, you're able to see the belly of the beast are opened up. You're like, irks. Oh boy.
Well, the problem is that, anyone with any sense wouldn't have to actually see the books to know that
Mm-hmm.
everything has a price. And the price can't be free, right? Because somebody else has to pay for what is free, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm going to just tell you point blank how I think about the people who voted for Mom Donnie in New York. I think they're stupid. I think history is littered with examples of why socialism fails. Littered with them. If you're in a country with as many universities and access to information as America is, and you do not understand that socialism is a problem, man, you're in a seriously bad situation.
Mm.
Now, the reasons you hear thrown about in the mass media about why they went in, those things are part of it. But what is the real reason they went in?
I asked that question.
What's the answer?
I'm not getting it. And it's clouded.
But,
It's shrouded
well,
because of narco terrorists. That's what's out there. That he was
well,
wanted for different crimes, and there was a link that Shelley shared. There's a number of
that,
reasons. And that's why it's complex.
that makes it easier for him to do, for Trump to do. But I don't think that's the main reason why it was done. You have to look to history when you want to think about what's happening in current events. Look at what happened in Iraq. One of the things that Iraq was toying with doing was selling oil in its own currency. And they were invaded. Gaddafi in Libya wanted to do the same thing. And he was taken out in a heartbeat. There is a term that everyone needs to be familiar with. It's called the petrodollar. Essentially, it is something that grew out of the aftermath of the last World War, in which
I think I
not
pulled up something on that, but go ahead. You go ahead.
it's not a law per se,
Uh-huh.
but it's just a convention where the agreement was um, countries of the world would buy the US dollar and then use the US dollar to buy oil on the on the global market.
Okay.
That's the concept of the petrodollar. But if you think about that what that means is that has tremendous benefits to the American economy
And not
because it places its currency in extremely high demand,
right.
right? And it gives the country a lot of leverage in a lot of ways, which is one of the reasons why criminals would not want to be subject to it because of the embargoes and so forth that could flow from that. Because if the US would say restrict your access to US dollars because you've decided to do something that they're not happy with, then it obstructs your international trade with the oil that is in your country. And so the reason why America went into Venezuela isn't so much that America wants to get its hands on American oil. I mean, on the Venezuelan oil. It's that when Venezuela nationalized the oil industry, they in part, not all of it, some were from other countries, the oil companies that were there um, mining and refining the oil, some of those companies were American companies, and they were not fully compensated by the Venezuelan government when they nationalized the industry. And in other words, American companies lost money. So the way things work in America is when big business is upset with what has happened to them, they go and they finance politicians to run for Congress and Senate and even president and say, we want this issue addressed. And so um, that usually ends up in embargoes and all sorts of restrictions on a country when Congress takes on the issue, or even the president decides to take it up as an issue. The same thing happened with Cuba. Cuba nationalized a lot of properties that were owned by not just Americans, but it included Americans, to the tune, I think, of about I think it was like $11 billion worth of property they weren't compensated for. That's why that's why Cuba is in the situation it's in today. It's not just because they're a communist country, I mean a socialist country. It is because they nationalized, meaning the government stole somebody else's property and said, we're taking this for ourselves. And they put the label on it, nationalized, which sort of is a sanitary term, but the government stole somebody else's property. And they went to their representatives and said, you got to do something about this. And this is why Cuba is in the mess that it's in today. Because the companies say, I want to be compensated for what the government stole from us. And but Cuba doesn't want to pay. In part, that's what's happening in Venezuela. But the biggest issue, the main goal in Venezuela is the same that it was with Iraq and Libya and Algeria, and there was other countries that were looking to sell oil in their own currency. And so that's the unpardonable sin as far as America is concerned, because if the petrodollar dies completely, then the entire advantage, the economic advantage that America has, including the fact that the American dollar is the reserve currency of the world, if that dies, then the entire lifestyle in America changes. And then you won't hear things like, "Oh, we'll dedicate 800 billion for this and 500 billion for that," like it's going out of style. Because then they would have to actually turn around and borrow money like everybody else, and they just wouldn't be as powerful economically as they are, because their currency would not be
That's strong.
in as strong. So yeah, being sending drugs to America makes it easier for Trump to go there, but that's not the real reason they did it. It was that they were threatening the dominance of America globally. That's the real reason that they're being taken up.
There
And
were. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and I heard some rumblings that the vice president in Venezuela was sort of suggesting that, she's not just gonna let it slide, but I don't think she has much of a choice, because you can say whatever you want to say about rules globally and the UN and international law.
Right.
But really and truly, at the end of the day, democracy comes out of the barrel of a gun. And America has the biggest guns. And so when the biggest guns roll in and say, "Here, what, guys, this is the way it's going to be," the question is, what are you going to do about it? That's really, at the end of the day, the last resort. The UN is just a forum that the good, the bad, the ugly, and the deplorable get together and have discussion on in a neutral area. But just because you're a UN member doesn't mean you're a saint. It's just a place where friends and rivals get together and hopefully hash out issues. Now, I think what's missing is that Biden had a $25 million bounty on Maduro's head. Okay? So it's not that they didn't have both political parties didn't have equal concern about the drug issue. The reason why this is happening is because this president had the courage to do something about it. What I find interesting is that the Democrats advocate for abortion, which is murder. I can justify that position. I know how to argue that if you want to argue that. But they don't have the courage to stand up for the people who lives are being utterly destroyed by the scourge of narcotics, illicit narcotics. And it's a whole lot of hypocrisy that's going on in both the political parties in the US. The UK, I don't know, the UK is an absolute disgrace. I think of it now as like a fourth world country. And getting worse. They're becoming very totalitarian as well. Freedom of speech
Well, they threw a question out in the floor of Parliament yesterday asking if they could do that to the Venezuela, why won't they do it to Israel?
Do what to Israel?
Like go in and take their president. I'm trying to find the
But
actual question.
what would be the legal basis for doing that?
Okay, it says, sorry. During the UN emergency meeting on Venezuela, even the UK House of Commons question echoed across the floor. Why doesn't the United States take the same approach with Israel leadership as it did with Venezuelan president?
Okay.
That was a question that was posed on the floor of Commons.
And what would be the reason why they would do that?
I guess they're trying to say the same force that you use for Venezuela. Why don't you do that to Israel? Because it's a similar at the context.
So
Go ahead.
Netanyahu
Mm-hmm.
is trafficking drugs to America.
Good question. Good question.
Because remember, Maduro was indicted by a court in New York. He's an indicted criminal, wanted. He's a fugitive. Is Netanyahu a fugitive? Now, I heard the comment about they have a international court have a warrant out for his arrest for war crimes. Okay, let's address that one.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do if the people around you are constantly trying to kill you? Remember, you got to remember this. Islam and the Jews are not exactly friends. Okay? And it's more so that it's not that Israel is an enemy of Islam. It's that Islam sees Israel as its enemy.
Okay.
And you have you remember we were talking about human rights.
Correct.
Right? And so the right to life is a human right. We were all created by God. It doesn't matter where you're from, we all have life. And life is not given to us by government. Okay? It's a God-given right, opportunity for us to live. And so we have a right to live that life and it not be taken from us unnecessarily by someone else. But if you get up and you decide you're going to take your neighbor's life, and then the question is, does your neighbor have the right to defend
themselves,
their lives from being murdered? And if you continue to attack, do I have the right to continue to defend? And how long do I defend? Or what point can I say, well, look, I need to stop this attack by using overwhelming force, because defense at the level that you're talking about with them is very, very, very expensive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just stay in a state of war like that constantly, because it has an enormous economic cost. Forget about the pricelessness of life and all that kind of economically, you just can't afford it. So should you be required to just sit there and have the quality of your life utterly destroyed because someone doesn't like you? Do you not respond?
Of course you would respond.
Of course you'd respond.
Yeah.
And so let me tell you where that brings us to. I bet you if you were to take a poll in Israel and you asked the question, if it could be absolutely, and I put emphasis on the word absolutely, guaranteed that nobody would attack Israel if Israel agreed to a two-state solution, I would be venture to guess that everyone in Israel would prefer that than to war, because war has a lot of uncertainties associated with it.
Correct.
But what the problem is that you can't guarantee that. And the reason why you can't is because the Quran makes it so that Israel is the enemy. Okay? They're the sworn enemy. And so you'll hear people say, well, but that's just a fringe minority. No, it's not that simple. Here's the nuance. If you ask anyone who's a Muslim, do you believe the Quran is the uncreated word of God? They will say yes. And so if they're allowed to kill non-Muslims because they're considered infidels, even if someone is a Muslim and doesn't personally feel like doing that, you couldn't get them to criticize that policy that's in the Quran because they consider that the word of God, and they wouldn't dare criticize God. So they'll remain silent as the quote minority kill infidels.
There was a
So
comment, Denny, that when you said about the there it is. AJT Campbell says that was when you were talking about the fee for the MTA, the subway fees were risen. They provided some more context. Yes, the subway fare did increase to $3. This happened on January 4th, rising from $2.90. It was planned. Modest hike approved by the MTA board in September of 2025 to keep pace with inflation and operating costs. Now, they said that multiple sources, including the New York Times and Gothamist, CBS New York, and MTA's official site, also confirmed this change affected subway, local buses, and other services. So this new elected leader, Zoran, did not officially raise the fares. He became the mayor.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let's see him reduce it to zero.
Because of what he campaiged on is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why you said what you said. Okay.
Yeah, make him lower it to zero. I bet you he can't do it. You see, when he won, he immediately said, we told you to stop sending in donations. Well, we want to resume that. Come on, send them in. You know why he wants the donations? Because he knows that everything costs money. And he thinks he's going to run New York by people donating money so that he could give it to people so that services could be perceived as being free.
But the saying is real. There's no free lunch.
There is no free lunch, right? And the people who supported him will live to regret it if he tries to do what he actually promised. Because it's not affordable. Like, all right, let's just say, for example, that you could get, I'll just use a simple example. Water falls out of the sky for free, right? But do you get pipes in the ground from Georgetown to East End for free?
No, there's a
Who
cost.
manufactured the pipes? Who put them in the ground?
The infrastructure,
who
the
has
labor.
to maintain them? Where do you get the force to push the water from Georgetown to East End?
There's a cost associated with that.
Everything has a cost. And if you're a voter in New York and you think that things are for free, trust me, you need to wake up. That is so unrealistic, it's not even funny. I mean, that's like elementary stuff.
Mhm.
So Venezuela is about so when Trump looks at Venezuela, he's saying, look, people are thinking that America wants to steal Venezuelan oil. Eh, that's not necessarily what's being said. What's being said is you may have the oil, but do you have the infrastructure and the expertise to extract the oil and to bring it to market at a price that could make all elements of that production profitable,
Mhm.
right? Well, a lot of that has been destroyed over the years in Venezuela. And what um, is being said is that the companies that do extraction and refining
Mhm.
around the world could help Venezuela gain
To-
access to it. Just
That's
like how water falls out of the sky for free, but how do you get it to all of the places that it didn't fall?
yeah.
Right? It costs money. And so somebody's got to spend the money to get the oil out of the ground.
Which they
Now
say is quite difficult. From all I then looked into that because you keep going down
yeah,
different rabbit holes. Apparently, that is one of the biggest, most complex type of dredging, I guess you would call it, for oil is trying to get crude. It's
yeah,
quite complex.
it is. You remember a while back when they were selling fuel to Jamaica and other countries at discounted. They were saying that it was a discounted rate. People here on the island was saying, "Look, the price on the pump in Venezuela is 15 cents a liter.
Mm-hmm.
We should be able to have cheaper fuel." Let me explain to you how socialist countries work. Socialist countries would take that oil and they would sell it on the international market at the market rate. They would take those profits and use some of those profits to subsidize the sale of fuel locally. So the
Mm-hmm.
way in which their local people would benefit is that instead of paying the full price, they pay a small fraction of the price, which is not the realistic uh, cost, right? But it's subsidized because we in the rest of the world buy the fuel from Venezuela at a higher price, and then they help their people. Cayman does that in some ways as well. So all countries have a mixture of capitalism and socialism. Some countries have greater degrees of it, some have lesser degrees of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's not really a country that I can think of that's just pure capitalism. Not even America. America has social security. They have things that programs that benefit Americans um, that are technically socialist programs. The question is, w- w- how much socialism is too much?
Mm-hmm.
You see, and so you have to start to think clearly when you hear somebody say, "Oh, we're going to do this for free." Well, yeah, but how are you going to pay for the thing that you're going to do for free? Because I just described that Venezuela has to sell oil on the international market in order to have some of those profits be used to subsidize certain aspects of their local economy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you pay for the thing that you say you're going to give away for free? This is not free,
Right.
right?
There's a
And
question.
this is what we're struggling with, because especially here in Cayman, we're getting the brunt of a lot of what's happening, consequences of things happening in the world. So as countries apply pressure to their businesses, that shows up on our shore in the form of policies.
Mm-hmm.
So the government would be willing to listen to big business, to change the laws, to do things a certain way. But remember that when big business is recommending that we do things a certain way, what they're actually talking about is how does that benefit their industry?
Scream.
They're not talking about what would be good for the Caymanian people. They may use those words, but that's not that's not as that's not really the goal. It's about how can the business that come here can be profitable.
Danny, there's a question that kept popping up here, and from a Scott Thicker 8699, it says, why Saudi Arabia is I guess too rich and Venezuela is poor, as you know what, although both countries are equal oil.
Well, they play along with the rich countries of the world. They sell their oil. They do business with America.
There are no sanctions against them
Yeah,
as much as
right.
there are against Venezuela. That's the quick answer,
Well,
or one of the quickest answers.
if you start doing things that threaten the world,
Mm-hmm.
then you can expect that you'll attract the attention or the ire of the powerful countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the day that they start exporting, um, drugs to America, just use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're unfortunate enough that the president is Trump, who doesn't just threaten but carry out his threats, then they'll find out really fast that they're not special.
So the other follow-up question then, the logistics of Venezuela oil compared to Saudi oil is a lot better? Do the logistics?
I I I I think I think it is a little, but not as much difference as you think, because if I remember correctly, I think there are some refineries in Texas
Mm-hmm.
that are built to refine oil from Venezuela. But obviously you would want some of that refining to take place in your own country, because that would involve employment, and
Correct.
it would be cheaper and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Interesting.
But I don't I'm not, I don't know all of the variables, but you might think of oil as oil, but there is sweet crude, and then there's crude that is not sweet. I can't remember the term for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to build a refinery for the type of oil that you're refining.
And we just got breaking news that Trump now is just saying Trump wants to buy Greenland rather than invading. This was just breaking news that it popped up on my screen, and that was a statement made by Rubio. So he no longer wants to invade Greenland. Trump wants to buy Greenland. That's the latest news just popping up. You may have heard it in the background. That was what just popped up.
No, I actually didn't hear it, but but I mean, I don't think just invading a country to take it over the way things used to happen a long time ago would go as smoothly as it did back in the day, so to speak.
Well, why would the term rather than invade be used for Greenland? It's a choice of words.
Well, I think
I'm playing devil's advocate.
I think that's a counter for those who are suggesting that that's what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember him saying that he wants to invade them. Like I'm trying to think about, did I hear that somewhere? And I can't recall it.
Well, as I said, it's just developing. It just popped
Yeah.
up on my
No,
Google
what I
Chrome
mean
feed.
is
You know, I
when
get what you're saying. I
when he
would
was
look
first
more.
elected. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as we can see, these developments continue to happen, and these statements are now being made. It's pretty much on the second by second. There's changed. There's so much information out there, and this is why in this space. And Danny, I thank you so much for actually coming on and explaining, giving a different side, because it's one thing, and this is why I welcome all the feedback that we have. I try to answer the questions. I do some research. I do, and I deliver. I execute. And that is why we welcome all opinions. And I made it quite clear this was not about politics today. It was describing sovereignty. And I thank you for adding into that. Go ahead.
Let me just say one more thing.
Sure.
I was one of the group that went to the UN with Pastor Al and the Chamber of Commerce. It was a group of us that went to do a paper for the decolonization committee. Can't remember exactly what year that was now, but I think it was in the early 2000s, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And at the UN, you have to be seated in a seat in order for what you say to be recorded officially.
Correct. You do.
Well,
you have to be at the table.
Yeah. So the UK stands behind their seat and make comments to influence the committee.
Oh, really? They're not at the table?
Well, they could be, but at that time they chose not to be.
Oh, at that time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the UK is not really being honest with the Cayman Islands. The UK is a bunch of hypocrites. And in fact, when it came to defending the Cayman Islands, only one country explicitly expressed its support for what we were saying at the UN, because we were just arguing about about retaining the importance of the committee continuing its work on decolonization and us preserving our rights at the UN, and the country that came to our defense was Cuba.
And what year did you say this happened?
I can't remember the exact year. I'd have to look it up. I just remember the event, but
it was the United Nations?
Yes, it was the Decolonization Committee. And
at the Decolonization
Committee.
Because the UK has been a full member of the United Nations since 1945.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
But the Decolonization Committee is what you were talking about.
They tell us we have all kinds of rights too.
Mm-hmm.
We even have the right to be informed and educated on all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, never once has the UK facilitated an event in the Cayman Islands to educate the people of the Cayman Islands.
Mm.
And so I'm saying to you that the UK is being hypocritical, that they're interested in us being educated on these issues. They're not. I consider them flat out liars.
Mm. Well, that's why I said it here from yesterday, Danny. And we have to continue to use this space to uplift, empower, educate, and just put subjects that are quite complex and quite emotive sometimes to the forefront. And this is why I said that 2026 will be the year of civic power and just building this accountability together. We can't just sit under rocks and pretend like we're not seeing and hearing what's happening. And we cannot let political colors, flags, symbols divide us from what's staring us in our face.
Well, they were the ones who wrote the language of Article 73 of the UN Charter that deals with these issues, and their constitution for the Cayman Islands contains a provision that contradicts their UN obligations.
Are you kidding? I have to look deep
I'm
into that.
dead. I'm dead serious.
What?
I'm deadly serious.
Oh, wow.
You have no idea how hypocritical they are.
Oh, good God. We
Anyhow,
continue to learn here on this space. And yeah, I think there's another show coming up at 7:30, but I want to find out if you can leave me there so I can do my wrap up, which
yeah.
will be very brief. Thank you so much. I am expecting you and everybody else. Mr. Balika has been very quiet for 2026 thus far. Hope he's well. But yeah, so, I mean, I thank you, Denny, for calling in. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And Jimbo says I needed to give you our first kaboom for 2026. We need to, says, please give Denny a kaboom.
Kaboom! Muchas gracias.
Yes.
That's all the Spanish I know.
There you go. Yeah, we better learn it. Take care, my love. All the best to you. Always a pleasure. Yes. There we go. We've come to another end of an episode of Sabrina Speaks. Hey, Miss Barbara, how are you? Trump thinks everyone is just like him for sale. He's not paying for anything, but the U.S. is certainly paying a huge price. You're more than welcome, Jim. Sure. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with me today. And I know it got a little heated sometimes. I saw the comments in there, but good. Don't shoot the messenger. I do my research. You may not agree with the perspective that I'm coming from. We got to agree to disagree. You're entitled to your opinion. You know what they are. Everybody has an orifice. And that's what we're all about here. I'm just keeping it happy. I'm remaining alert. And like I said, 2026, the year of civic power. I don't care what part of the world you're from, because we are voices of the island's conversations for the world, and this is not in a silo. It has been a pleasure bringing you another episode of Yes, It Will, Tartarian. It's been my pleasure bringing you this other episode of Sabrina Speaks here on CMRTV.com, and I am so excited based on the feedback and your participation. So at the end of the day, whether or not you love it, the closing line that I'm going to leave with you, the UN debates and parliaments around the world raise questions still. The questions are still there. And the real issue isn't just Venezuela or even Israel, based on the question that was asked on the floor of the House of Commons yesterday in the United Kingdom. The key takeaway is whether sovereignty is a universal principle or a flexible tool in the hands of the powerful. And history shows us that when rules bend for convenience, smaller nations pay the price. It has been my pleasure. God bless. Love you all lots. Until the next episode of Sabrina Speaks, have a fabulous evening.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, K-Man, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at CMRTV.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.